All right, everyone. How's it going today? Rick Howard here. And we are going to talk a little bit about foreign military sales. What is foreign military sales? What is selling overseas look like? Can a small business jump in on any of these opportunities? So there is a lot going on. As many of you know, President Trump is in the Middle East, went over. I believe he's in Qatar now, but he was talking Saudi Arabia, met with MBS the other day. And I've been getting a lot of questions about foreign military sales. What is going on? How does this affect government contracting? Is this government contracting? So let's jump right into it. And let's just start with my experience there. So as many of you know, I was in the Air Force for 20 years. I was an acquisitions officer. And part of my experience, in fact, one of my last jobs, I spent a year in Saudi Arabia. I was managing the foreign military sales process, and I had an office in their Ministry of Defense. And I worked for, of course, I was active duty. So I represented the United States, the Department of Defense, and helped them with the FMS process. So there's a lot of reason, just to give you a quick overview, there are a lot of reasons why we have a foreign military sales program. Now, at the time I was there, it was just a little over $80 billion in a lot of different things. And we'll get into, not just Saudi, but what are other countries buying from us, right? And what does that process look like? But first of all, the reason that we do this, okay, the reason that the United States sells weapons, training to other countries, and that's what's known as the foreign military sales process. Okay, this is absolutely related to government contracting if you're following our content, and the federal acquisitions process that you've been learning. You may be selling to the government, you may be in one of our courses, consulting, working for a company. But our country, first of all, sells these systems to our partner nations around the world. And there is a lot of regulation, of course, and approvals that go into this. But this is in our best interest as a country to have our nations using equipment that we have either built and sold to them, but that we build and our military train on, right? Because what that creates for us is a lot of interoperability, right? Because we go to, I don't want to say we go to war, but we have conflicts, global conflicts all the time. And Saudi is a partner of ours, as well as many, many other countries. Those countries are involved in what we call the foreign military sales process. So if you're looking, this is probably one of the most interesting niches in government contracting. Very few people are doing it for a reason, right? But is there a small business avenue here? Absolutely. But you got to know what you're doing, and you have to know what foreign military sales is. And then we're going to talk specifically about Saudi. And I'm just going to give you in this, we're not going to, I'm not going to give you a roadmap to selling to different countries out there, but I am going to give you the tools you need to figure out if this could be for you or not. But let's just start with what is foreign military sales. So again, I was in Saudi Arabia managing this process for the Department of Defense. And so very intimately involved and kind of understand it from both sides, as well as the company angle. So the foreign military sales process, this is when our government sells whether it's a weapon system, training, an aircraft to another country. And this is a contract that is actually between our government, the United States government, and the foreign country. But of course, companies are very much involved in this, and they like the foreign military sales process to a certain extent, because what you see from the company standpoint is your contract, just like if you were to win a contract with the Air Force or Army, of course, we talk about influencing and finding opportunities early, writing a proposal. Eventually, you go on contract. However, you go on contract, your contract is going to be with the United States government. And even if this is for you, or if you're providing something to another country, now that's a good thing, because the contract with the other country is between the U.S. and that country. And there's a lot that goes into that, but one thing that happens is they are going to ensure that, money is exchanged and put into a bank in the United States. So that clears up and can streamline things like payment for you, and it gives you as a company or a business owner certain protections, right? So when we see $142 billion to Saudi, there's a huge amount of money being spent there. And there's a lot of different areas, and we could go into a list of things that Saudi would like to buy that the president is coordinating with them. But again, just to make clear, when I was managing this in 2018, 2017, it was above $80 billion. So no surprise to me that now we're talking about a $142 billion package, right? Now, some things that are interesting about the foreign military sales process from a business perspective. As a lot of you are probably aware, one of the reasons government contracting is a long process and why there's so many regulations is to ensure fairness in competition, right? So sole source contracts are relatively rare. There are ways to do them. There are reasons for them. Like if your company is the only company that provides a particular solution, or if maybe you have a certification like 8A that can make a sole source a little bit easier. Sometimes you can use the SIBR. If you've won a SIBR contract, we can use the language in that to drive a sole source contract. But relatively speaking, most contracts are not going to be sole source. They're competed, and we know that that can be a long process, right? So what's different about foreign military sales is that the country that wants to buy from us can make a request for a specific company in the process. So for instance, in this case, we're talking about Saudi Arabia, right? So if you were working with the Saudi Arabian government and you were selling, you name the system that you're selling, right? Could be a technical system, could be a training system, and they decide they want to buy that from you. Well, what you can coordinate with them is that when they make their request, because in the foreign military sales process, there is a letter of request that the country is going to make, and then our government is going to review that and either approve it or deny it. But in that letter, they can request your company. So if you are working for a company or you're trying to sell to a foreign government, they can request your company specifically in there, and that's usually going to be honored. Now, they can also do the opposite. They may decide that they want an open competition because they want obviously the best terms, the best pricing, right? So this goes for everyone. Now, another thing I'd like to point out is that there are two main ways, at least the ways that I was involved with as far as selling to foreign governments, right? There's the foreign military sales process where the contract is between the United States and the foreign government. And then there is direct commercial sales, and that's a direct contract between you and the foreign government. There are things that we, as a business owner or sales executive, there are protections that you want to put in place for yourself, and there are things that you want to know, right? There are different websites that you're going to want to check out, State Department, different laws and regulations. So when we get involved in this, we want to be very clear about what the law says is allowed and have a solid understanding of the process, right? But big picture is, there's going to be increased spending, and we can see now, by the way, with a lot of what's happening with some of these deals that we're seeing with tariffs, we're seeing the foreign military sales deals that are going through. What we're seeing is we're seeing an increase of spending and an increase of these contracts that are be coming out. And the people I still talk to on the government acquisition side are scrambling right now. Even aside from Doge and all of that stuff, this time of year is when fallout funds become available and everyone's kind of racing to the end of September. But now even more so, because there are a lot of delays with the new president coming in with their administration. This happens every time there's a new president, new administration. Sometimes there's delays, sometimes there's new funding goals, but this in particular with Doge and everything else, we saw a little bit of delay. So we're going to see a sprint to spend the funding that the federal organizations have. And then now we're also seeing this other opportunity with foreign military sales. And in particular, this large Saudi Arabia deal, essentially, that the president was talking about. Now, how can a small business engage in foreign military sales? Like, where do you even see these type of opportunities, right? So want to take a look at where you can look, and I'll even share my screen right here. And this is going to, is this going to shock you? I don't think so. I'm trying to share my screen here right now. All right. Sam.gov. Imagine that, right? When do I ever bring sam.gov up on these trainings? Look at this. Now, obviously I went in here before. I just typed in FMS. Okay. And check out what's popping up already. We've got, because FMS again stands for foreign military sales, right? So where we're looking up here, we can see right here, here's a Saudi tech upgrade. Offers are coming up due in June. This one, I would have to click on it to learn a little bit more. But KSA usually refers to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that is something by the way, I'm going to put a test in the comment section here. If you guys can hear me, just to let me know, or if there's a problem. And I'm also doing this at a strange time of day here. So again, for those of you just tuning in, we're talking foreign military sales. We are referencing the new deal between, I say new, it's not really new. President Trump went to Saudi Arabia, met with, the folks in charge over there, Ministry of Defense. And in the news headlines, $142 billion FMS deal with Saudi Arabia. Now, as I mentioned, I managed the FMS program. I had an office in the Ministry of Defense. It was over $80 billion in 2017. Of course, it's going to be a lot more now. And now we're just talking about, hey, where do I even find some of these opportunities, right? So some of them are going to pop up on sam.gov. Now, I just typed in FMS, but I just wanted to show you, if it is FMS related, foreign military sales related, it's the regular acquisitions process that you all know and love, right? The contract is between the United States and the country. In this case, we're talking about Saudi, but it would be any of our partner nations. And, oh, hey, Brett, man, you're always on here. So I appreciate it. And now I'm just trying to move my cursor around here. Oh, there we go. Cool. But yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for the shout out, Brett. And you can go right in here anyway and just see some of these foreign military sales opportunities just by searching for them. Now, is this the way that you're going to win a contract with a partner nation? Not necessarily, but it could be a good place for you to start doing some research because a lot of you, thanks, Josiah, a lot of you are going to be, if you're a small business, subcontracting, especially on these larger contracts, just like in regular federal government contracting, right? If there's a big contract coming out, often awarded to a prime, you might, as a small business, be then working with that prime as a sub. Now, understanding what the partner nations are actually looking for, like a nation like Saudi Arabia, that would be some research that you would have to do, right? But I do want to give you some resources to get you started. Okay. So one is just, hey, we can go to sam.gov and we can start taking a look at foreign military sales opportunities. The other thing I want you to do is you need to understand that there are a lot of laws and regulations here. And I would like you to, or I would direct you to the Department of State website, because you can do a lot of research there on specific companies. Okay. And we also need to talk about Defense Security Cooperation Agency, which anyone that had a job like I did over there, where we were directly involved with foreign military sales, would have been trained by Defense Security Cooperation Agency. And it is a lot of training. It is excessive, but that's for a reason, right? Because we want to make sure that we want to provide our partner nations what they're asking for. We want to make sure we are safeguarding taxpayer dollars. We want to make sure we're doing everything legally. So there is a very in-depth approval process that goes back and forth. Now, one thing that you may or may not be surprised about here is that relationships are very important when we are selling to our foreign partners. Now, I have an interview coming up here that I'm going to release with Zach Selch, who's been in international sales his entire career. My experience with this has been from the government side, managing the portfolio from the countries and helping some clients sell to foreign governments. And for people that are just jumping in here, there's two major ways that you can do that. One is direct commercial sales, and that kind of circumvents our acquisitions process, but does not alleviate you of understanding what you can and cannot sell to other governments. And then the other process, which is what I'm talking about now, is foreign military sales. And the foreign military sales process utilizes our acquisition system. So you as a small business are selling your contract essentially is with the US government, and then the US government's contract is with the partner nation. And that affords you a lot of protections, right? But it also does something else. It increases the timeline dramatically, right? So this is one reason that sometimes either partner nation or a company is going to prefer the direct commercial sales process over the foreign military sales process. Remember, foreign military sales, our acquisition system, our acquisitions officers, right? We'll have people in country working with the partner nation like Saudi Arabia. And then we are going to have an acquisition shop probably back in the States that's managing the contract, right? And again, as we said, the partner nation, unlike in this country, the partner nation can call out or request the company that they want the contract with. So a lot of the way, or I should say the ways that will happen, and I mentioned relationships are important, is do you have any relationships with people in country, right? A lot of businesses will have offices kind of embedded in the country with a partner nation, and they'll work with them. And other countries work a lot different than selling in our country, right? So the relationships are very important, for instance. Not that they're not important here. I talk about the importance of meetings and developing a relationship with who you're buying from all the time. But it's more ingrained in the culture in certain countries. In each country, by the way, and I talked with Zach about this, each country can be very different from another. But I can tell you in Saudi, my experience there was actually really, really positive. And for instance, if I get into a meeting in Saudi, if I'm in their MOD or meeting with a government official, it's never going to be just jumping right in, going to business like it can be in our country. So for instance, over there, it would be eating, having dates and coffee or gawa, I want to say, my memory serves, what they would call it. And actually, I really enjoyed that part of it. But you develop a relationship with the people that you're selling to, and that's part of the process. Okay. Now, I showed you where you could find opportunities in sam.gov, and I also were looking at the Defense Security Cooperation website. I'm not going to go through all of this except to say that you can go in here and start doing some studying. If this is an avenue you're interested in, whether you're a business that is interested in selling to a partner nation, or you are a consultant and you want to maybe think of making foreign military sales your niche, and we have some in the govclose.com training program that are doing just that. But it is really interesting. Now, there's a lot of studying and a lot of work you're going to have to do. And you can see here, there's overviews on foreign military sales. There is some stuff on financing. There's training, by the way, also. You have the training and education down here. So you can jump through a lot of the different areas on the website. And I wanted to just go through a couple of areas to keep you safe as well. By the way, if anybody does have a question while we're on, this is going to be a short one today, guys. I'm not going to be on here for much longer, but anyone has questions about foreign military sales, about the Saudi deal that you're wondering about, feel free to just throw it in the chat. And I had one thing. Oh, we've got another comment up here. Olivia. Oh yeah, no worries, Olivia. No, happy to talk about it. This is not something that a lot of people do talk about, which is the foreign military sales process, right? But okay, I had something I wanted to bring up, but it looks like it's not going to work. So that's fine. But let's go ahead and talk about just some of the things, because I want everybody to approach this with their eyes wide open. One thing is export control laws. Okay. They exist. So you can't sell everything to every country, and there are laws about how you're going to do that. So we want to know, and we want to be well aware of what the export control laws say. there is also something called ITAR, International Trafficking in Arms Regulations. So depending on what you sell, it could be very, very controlled by the US government. And in some cases, there are very elaborate systems to ensure every piece of equipment that is sold to a partner nation is accounted for. In other cases, there are laws that full out prevent it. There is a process of requesting from one country. A letter of request goes in to see if we will allow the purchase of a certain piece of technology, especially when we get to things like weapons, anything that can be used, in that regard. Those are usually going to be more controlled. There is a U.S. munitions list, and that's right here. If anybody wants the links to these, by the way, just ask me. Just go ahead and ask. And I'm assuming everybody can see me right now. But so this is, again, I just pulled this up just so you could get an idea of it here. So this is, if you type in www.ecfr.gov and then navigate through here. But so if you're interested in figuring out if you can even sell the thing that your company has, or a certain area, I would go and I'd start taking a look at that, because this U.S. Munitions list, there's a self-assessment that you can do for products and tools. And even if it's not a direct tie to that munitions list, you want to make sure that you are 100% clear that you can sell it. So you can, let's see here, there's a commodities jurisdiction and trade controls form that you can submit to have it reviewed. Here is so this is the Department of State order of review decision tool. So this is something else that you can use, right? So you're starting to see here, there are some extra steps if we're going to sell to a partner nation that we have to go through as companies, right? There's a lot to learn. Let's see here. I think there's a comment that has come up. As a freight broker, I want to move these items. How do I approach that? I have taken the International Export Control course, and yes, it's extremely controlled. Oh yeah, would also love that list, please. Well, hold on. I'll start dropping links in here. And then for anybody that is on the live, they can get them now. And I'm not sure if these will pop up for those of you that watch this after our live session here. But if not, you can always reach out to me and I'll pop them, and I can send you the links pretty easily. And let's see here. There's one more here. So this one's going to be the munitions list where you can get some of that information. So I hope that helps. Yeah. So as far as being a freight broker, it's just looking at the opportunities, Olivia, with foreign countries. There's a lot that these countries are buying from the United States. And by the way, there's also just understanding that the way that the United States is viewed from other countries, most of the other countries are going to view, especially when we're talking about the military sales, they're going to view our training and our equipment and our services as being top tier, right? And so that's what they're getting. So as a company, a couple things that I would do, like broadly speaking. First, make sure it's legal to sell to the country that I want to sell to. And I would also have a lawyer review everything that specializes in this type of trade. Next is, am I focusing on the foreign military sales process or the direct commercial sales process, DCS versus FMS? Again, DCS, very fast comparatively, right? Because the government is kind of out of it. Any approvals to sell certain things, you still have to go through the same wickets, but you're not on contract with the government, and your contract would be directly with that other country. Now, faster, yes. Is there more risk potentially for you? And also now you're in charge of coordinating payments with the other country. So you have to make sure that, your relationships are established. You have solid contracts. The other thing with foreign military sales, guys, is that there is a long tail often associated with foreign military sales contracts. And what I mean by that is, since I'm an Air Force guy, let's just go back to, let's go use an airplane example, right? So if, in this case, Saudi Arabia, if they were going to buy an aircraft from us, right? If they were going to use the foreign military sales process to buy that aircraft, then they wouldn't just be getting the aircraft. They would most likely, in that contract, they would also be forced to buy the training and all of the logistics that goes to it and the maintenance and upkeep, right? And often that, the training, the maintenance, the years of maintenance and making sure we're upgrading all of the parts and everything on the schedules they're supposed to have, those those logistics or that tail end can often cost more than the aircraft itself. So the foreign military sales contracts are often longer and more expensive, and they are certainly longer to close. Okay, but this is a really interesting angle, and so if you have expertise in foreign military sales, if you want to develop that expertise in that, or direct commercial sales, we can see where the money is. Now, Saudi was the biggest FMS purchaser when I was managing that program in 2017. At least I say managing, I was part of the program. I managed it. I had an office in their MOD, but there were certainly many people back in the States involved with that, making political decisions. Here's another website I would just bring up here, Bureau of Industry and Security, that you're going to want to check out. So again, I know I'm fire hosing you guys a little bit here, but anybody with interest in FMS with Saudi or any other partner nation, these are websites that you're going to have to check out. Ensure that you understand the law and you are meeting all of its requirements. It's possible that you'll need a export control license, depending on what you're doing. Oh, hold on, it's a new site. That was the old one. Again, so this is Bureau of Industry and Security, Department of Commerce. I would check out that website as well. Hold on one second. Okay, perfect. Okay, so analytics. I think just like in regular acquisitions, in regular government contracting, if you were a company and you came to me and said, "Hey, Rick, I want to sell to the government," or, "Hey, Rick, we're selling to the Department of Energy, but I want to increase my contracts. I want to increase what I'm doing." I would tell you that before we do anything, we need to look at the data that's available, which is exceptional in the case of government contracting. Does the government buy what you sell? How much of it do they buy? How much of it do they buy from companies like yours? And who is buying? Meaning, who are the offices? We can see that. What offices? What are the top offices that buy what you sell? How are they doing it? Right. This is how we can reverse engineer the entire process. What are your competitors doing, and how much are they making? Right. So that can tell us everything. It give us a range of how much you can make a year, but it tells us a step-by-step process how you're going to sell to them. We can similarly do this with foreign military sales. Okay. We can look at the transaction records through USA Spending and SAM.gov. We can see what opportunities are out, what's coming out, but we can also take a look at FMS specific transactions and start pairing that with different countries, start getting an idea of what's actually available for us. So we don't want to operate blindly. This especially is not something to jump into blindly. If you're already involved with the government contracting process, you've been in business for a while, this may be something to take a look at. I recently did an FMS, a foreign military sales strategy roadmap for a client. And now they were specifically selling IT services. So can anyone guess what the top 3 countries were that were buying IT services at the time that I did that study? You could type it in the comments if you want, but I'll go ahead and save you the pain. So, oh, and somebody asked, let's see, any need for services like staffing in this particular case? Yeah. So LinkedIn user, I can't see your name, but maybe this will answer your question a little bit. So IT specific services, which could also include IT staffing services, right? Top 10 when I did this roadmap for a client of mine, and this was a few months back. Saudi Arabia, number 1. Imagine that. Again, number 1 FMS purchaser. Okay. Olivia, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think China's on that list of our foreign military sales partners. But India, maybe, here's what actually, because I think her second guess was India. India is interesting because we did look at India. India has a lot of homegrown in IT specifically. They have a lot of IT companies there. So they didn't appear on the top 10 list. Saudi Arabia, Canada, and Iraq at the time that I did this, and that was not this year, that was last year, is who popped up, followed by, in not in order, but Taiwan, the UK, France, Malaysia, Afghanistan, and I put a asterisk next to that for some reason, Jordan, and the Bahamas. But hey, so we can do research and we can start finding out, like, depending on what you sell, we can rack and stack what countries are making purchases. And then something else I would want to know is, we're talking FMS and this stuff gets tracked. I have ways of seeing some of this, but the direct commercial sales is going to be a little bit harder. However, I think that if we find a strong FMS portfolio in a company for whatever it is that you're selling or your client's selling, then I would make an assumption, although we know what happens when we assume things. I would assume to a certain degree that there is a DCS availability there as well. Okay. So what factors? Yeah, I did. Olivia, I did laugh. Yeah, I thought India would be on the list too when I did this, right? And maybe things have changed, but that was the reasoning that I got, and I did some pretty in-depth research, and I made a lot of calls too, because this was a couple of years after I was doing FMS work for the Air Force. But yeah, what turned up is just they do, and if you think about it, and I don't know what your businesses are that are for the people that are watching this, but for myself, I do a lot of work in IT, cyber, tech. And a lot of the companies I work with, they have teams in India that are doing a lot of the IT work and software development work. So I think it's just not Saudi. I think India is just particularly strong in that area. Now, I want to go through just a list of some things here to think about. And normally I try to put this in a chart before we went live, but I just got a bug when I saw this story here and wanted to jump on and maybe shed some light on what this means for you. Is there an opportunity here? So think about your core offerings, okay? And use the various spending analytics tools, including the State Department, to see what these countries are buying, okay? Now, secondly, think about, do you have relationships with any of these countries? Do you have family in any of these countries? Do you if you're working for a company, they may have an office in one of those countries, right? So these are things we want to ask because, like I said, in a lot of them, the relationship and the meetings is really important in driving some of these sales. We have people in the GovClose program, by the way, that come from different countries. One of the gentlemen is from Brazil. He's a U.S. citizen, but he's got a lot of family in Brazil. He does a lot of work in Brazil. He knows the companies. So selling to the Brazilian government, right up his alley, right? That was a way to do that. I've actually sold to the Brazilian government since I've been out of the Air Force. I sold software to them with a client I was working with. So once we kind of do that, and then I'm just going through a quick, hey, how do I help a company, or if I was a company, what am I thinking about? Core offering, spending analytics, current relationships with countries. Then that country is going to have specific requirements. And they may or may not have a lot of funding, right? Saudi's a country that has a lot of funding for these contracts, but there are other countries that do not. They have a minimal amount of funding. So we have to take that into equation to decide whether or not it's going to be within our best interest to try to sell to one of those countries. What does the country's relationship with the United States look like? Okay. And less important what you think versus what our country thinks, right? So you have to be authorized to sell to them, and the items you have to be authorized to sell. And by the way, there's also plenty of FMS subject matter experts out there that you can talk to. And if you have trouble finding any of them, I can connect you. I can give you like the first, second, third level probably view, but there are some people that just specialize in FMS. So now what they'll probably do is, if you do put a FMS plan together for you or your business, you're going to you're probably going to pare it down to a couple of different countries that you want to sell to based on everything we just talked about. Tier 1, tier 2, however you want it. That's how I usually do it. I start with my tier one countries. Now, when I have a tier one countries, let's just say it's Saudi, because that's what we're talking about here, right? First, I want to know who's my contact because there's a US embassy in Saudi Arabia. So I want to know who that is. I also want to know, in that case, there's so much spending going on that, for instance, I was there with a huge footprint of military personnel, called that political military. So it was, they take US military personnel and embed them either with or working with the embassy out there. Usually it's not that many people, but in this case it is. So you want to kind of get an idea of what the footprint looks like in the country you're selling to, but you want to know who's your embassy contact. That's very important. You want to know who's with the US embassy out there. And by the way, they can help you a lot. They live out there. They work with the different governments. They can advise you. They can tell you what not to do, which is almost maybe more important than what you should be doing. There's several other things that you can do to start learning a little bit about the country that you want to sell to. Let's talk Saudi for a second here. Now, in Saudi Arabia, there's a Chamber of Commerce, American Chamber of Commerce in Saudi Arabia. So I'll let you Google that and find that, at least at the time that I did my research on when I was helping one of my clients. But these are different agencies, different people you can talk to. Sometimes you have to, I'm not saying it's the American Chamber of Commerce is one you'd have to pay to be part of, but a lot of these organizations can really be beneficial to you if you want to sell to some of these countries. There is a U.S. Saudi Business Council. Did you know that? I'm going to share my screen here again just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. We have to think a little bit outside the box when we're talking foreign military sales, guys. Share screen again. So this is if you can read it, this is the U.S. Saudi Business Council. Okay. And so what they would say is, hey, we want you to become a member, right? But you can call them. You can get a lot of information about the country you're selling to. They can help you with some of the relationships, right? So I would encourage anybody that's interested specifically in Saudi Arabia. And after you've gone through and looked through the State Department stuff and the law, you can reach out to a something like this, which is a private organization, if I understand it. It's the U.S. Saudi Business Council. And I want to say you have to pay to be in this, but I'm not 100% sure if that's still the case or not. You can see here, they have different services. So look, they're strategic solutions, access to the U.S. and Saudi market. So a company like this is designed to help you essentially get out there. Thanks, Olivia. You're my biggest FMS fan. Not too many people interested or even aware of FMS. But again, if anybody out there is watching and they have a question, just let me know as I'm going through this. And I'm actually about to wrap up now. Oh, and by the way, Olivia, I just found my notes on India. Yeah. So India, highly competitive IT and defense market. So their digital economy generated, at the time I wrote this, was $200 billion annually from information technology and business process management. They aim to reach 1 trillion in the digital economy and 5 trillion by 2025, which is now. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they get there or not. But again, if they have a competitive economy, that's not what you're trying to sell them. You're looking to focus in a different area. Some of these countries, by the way, require you to partner with local businesses in those countries. Everyone's different, so I don't want to speak too out of turn. No, you're welcome. Thanks for that. I don't want to speak too out of turn, but you want to look at them. Saudi was that way when I was there, but I believe they've alleviated that. So I think you can sell to them without partnering with a Saudi company now. Might still be a good idea, right? Just depends. Just depends on the country and if you have relationships there, if you speak the language and all of that. And Olivia, you were an international relations major back in the day, and you flew Apaches. Awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening here. So Yeah, hopefully you can. I don't know if you're going to get a piece of that with whatever you're doing now, or if you're just excited because you have a background there. But man, you flew Apaches. That's awesome. I don't think I've ever flown in a helicopter, surprisingly. In a 20-year career, I flew for 10 years, but no helicopters, just big, ugly reconnaissance aircraft. Let's see here. I'm just reading some questions here that might not appear in. Are there contract vehicles associated with FMS? So I have found certain contract vehicles being utilized to put not the country, but to put the company on contract with the government. But of course, those contract vehicles don't extend the agreement. The contract would actually be between the United States and the other country. So remember, I would think of the United States and the FMS process as the middleman between you and the partner nation. But that doesn't mean you're not talking to the partner nation, because you got to find out what they need. You hopefully can get them to directly request your company on the contract, because as I mentioned earlier, that is possible, something that's not allowed in regular U.S. acquisitions. But yeah, so there are a variety of contract vehicles that could be used to put your company on contract. Now, something else that you can do is, and this is what I would do, if what you offer, what the company you're working with offers is going to be wrapped up in a larger contract, I would go and do your research like we talked about on country spending, but then I would make a list of the top prime contractors that are working in that country. And then you can start reaching out potentially to them for subcontracting opportunities. But again, as always, I don't usually recommend that you just reach out cold because you see that a company has a contract with the government. That's kind of spammy. What you want to do is find the opportunity and do some legwork, earn it. You want to earn that meeting. So you can earn that, whether it's FMS or anything else, by you find the opportunity early. You work with, in this case, it could be a partner nation, by talking to the users, the buyers over there. Talk with the embassy. There's a lot of people on the U.S. side that you can meet with. You could meet with, like we mentioned, we're just looking at the U.S. Saudi Business Council, right? But they probably have a really strong idea as well. But if you've been having conversations with people that are in the process, and then you reach out to a prime, even if it's a big prime, they're going to want to talk to you. Hey, I've got an opportunity with Saudi Arabia. I've met with the Saudi Business Council, the U.S. Embassy, and I've talked to one individual in the Saudi Ministry of Defense, or you pick the organization. They're going to want to talk to you. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I'll almost guarantee it, because I wouldn't not ignore that. So wrapping up here, relationship building, influencing, very, very important, just as on the U.S. side. However, it may even be more important for some of these countries, right? Every culture is different and they have different customs and courtesies, but you're going to want to make sure that you have a way to do that. Brett, working OCONUS and DoD, DOS projects, but hadn't considered FMS. No, good. No, glad it's hopefully giving you guys, look, even if it's not something that you want to engage on right now, just knowing a little bit about it and that it's there and what some of the laws are very important. And as we find out more, and we're hearing about things with different countries and Qatar, I think we're just going to start, guys, seeing a lot of increase here in the government contracting thing. We're already seeing it, right? I'm getting hit up a lot. You guys probably are as well. The government is moving. They have a lot of money to put on contract by the end of the fiscal year. It's May. So if you're not going after fallout funds, I can tell you, if you're not aware, fallout funds, maybe a topic for a different video, fallout funds, every agency has a certain amount of money. I'm not even just saying agency. Like if I'm at a base, different divisions and branches have funding and different types of money, different pots of money, some of which is going to expire at the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of September. And they're scrambling to spend all of it. And right, wrong, or indifferent, most offices feel like if they don't spend their budget, if they have to give it back at the end of the year, then they don't think they're going to get the same amount next year. They think they'll get less. I don't know if that's true or false. What I do know is that they're all scrambling to spend it, and they had put together what they call the fallout funds list. So they might come up with a dozen projects that they want to fund and rack and stack them, and then that's where the money goes. And I was heavily, heavily involved with using that method on the government side to fund projects that I was putting on contract. And on this side now, like, hey, working with government offices to figure out where that funding is. So that's something you guys should be looking at now as well. A lot moving here. And stay tuned. Or I would say keep your eyes open, because I'm going to publish my interview with Zach this week, maybe next week, on international sales. He's an expert. Awesome. And so he's going to really get into it, right? Not just FMS. You're going to learn a lot about direct commercial sales and the things that you have to consider. And by the way, he's also a great expert if you guys want to reach out and talk to somebody that's been doing this their whole career. Awesome. So that should be a great episode for you. Take care now. We'll see you.
After going through the course, I was able to land a client that pays me a monthly retainer to actually help them develop their business and go after these federal contracts.
I was able to get a consulting gig with a software company that currently works with the intelligence community.
Within 2 months, I had my first client. So the initial contract was for a 3-month contract for $4,000 a month.
So 27 years old, you've never worked in government contracting, you've never worked as a consultant, and you just closed your first deal, is that correct?
That's fair. And I've got a couple small projects on the side as well. So definitely something, probably my best investment I've made all year.
A cold call landed a 9-figure government contract.
Start a consulting business and a high salaried position as a account executive in public sales. So you're doing both of those things.
I'm living the best of both worlds right now.
So my name is Mike Knickerbocker. I am a naval officer that's getting ready to retire. Right now, I have 3 firm clients and 2 more perspectives. I'm able to provide value across different industries because the skill set that I learned through the course, I was able to apply my own experience.
GovClose came and it was a no-brainer. I wanted some secret sauce.
This has allowed me to live in Germany. It's a little hazy today, but we can do that. You see?
Oh yeah, dude, that's beautiful.
The content, the training, it's invaluable. It's written.
And Deb, what motivated you to join the GovClose certification program?
Wow. Well, I think that wanting to work with a leader in the field, someone who understands government contracting on a deep basis and has the reputation, the experience working with you and your company was a natural.
The students that graduate our program, they go on to start their own consulting firms, winning high dollar consulting clients. They go on to land high-paying salaried positions as account executives with companies that sell to the government. I'm so proud of the people that have gone through our program. And if you are considering either a job or a business, and by the way, some of our students are doing both, as I did. They're running a consulting business and they'll have an account executive job. It's transforming their lives. It's bringing true wealth to them and their families. Back to the video.